Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. Do you want to become a better shooter, reduce flinch, protect your ears, and just overall enjoy shooting your gun that much more? Then there's no better way to do that than by adding a suppressor to the end of your barrel. Be sure to check out Huxwrx Safety Co, as they are a leader in the suppressor world with their OSS Flow-Through Technology, virtually eliminating blowback and toxic gas that can affect weapon system performance and shooter health. To find out more about Huxwrx, go to huxwrx.com. That's huxwrx.com, and go get yourself a suppressor for your upcoming hunts. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by OnX Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is OnX Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, OnX Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust OnX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about OnX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt. and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys, if you're in the market for optics, I want you to go check out blackdiamondoptics.com. Black Diamond Optics offers world-class sporting and tactical optics, including thermals, all at wholesale pricing, direct to consumer. They are going to be partnering up with us for 2023, and I want to start pointing you over towards their direction. Check out Black Diamond Optics. If you've got any questions about it, shoot us a message. Love to hear from you. Be blessed, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today's episode is dedicated to anyone who has ever thought about pursuing the mysterious ghost of the wild, the North American cougar, the mountain lion, the puma, or whatever you want to call it. We're going to be talking with the man himself, Don Steele from Steele Outfitters down here in the state of Texas, all about his experiences in hunting cougars. When reached out on social media and asked some different followers, hey, what type of podcast topics do you want to hear? I had a request about calling cougars, how to call cougars, and successful tips and tricks and all that stuff. And so I was like, all right, well, who do I know that would know the predator game? So I called up Big Al Morris from Fox Pro, because him being a predator master himself, I said, Big Al, do you got anybody that knows all about the cougar game? And he's like, oh yeah, my man Don Steele out of Texas. He is your go-to. And so without further ado, I have the man himself, Mr. Steele, is in the house to record a podcast all about cougar hunting. And his take on cougar hunting is a little different, and we're going to hear all about it. So Mr. Steele, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with you. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. It's a beautiful night here in West Texas.
It is a beautiful night. It's a beautiful night to be alive.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that every day, every opportunity is a great opportunity, as long as we're above ground, still breathing. So, but I tell you, man, that big Texas sky is a beautiful thing to stare at.
It's
those stars come out.
Sunrises.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
See a lot of.
Well, tell listeners a little bit about yourself and your history when it comes to hunting, trapping, cougar hunting, and all that.
All right. Well, I was raised in San Angelo, Texas. We lived right next to the Concho River, and as a kid, that was my playground. I tried the trapping as a kid, which I thought was just great. Uh, Not knowing at the time that I was terrible at it, uh, but I made my own dough bait and stink bait, and I would go out catfishing and uh, carp, just anything that really was- gave you a good fight. But I raised in that part of the country, and later on in life, I professionally trapped for about 8 years for some ranchers down in Southwest Texas, and um, got to know a lot of ranchers, and acquired a lot of land to hunt on, predator hunt. And in my early years, in my 20s, I decided that I could make money doing what I'm doing and take people out uh, to do what I love doing anyway. And so that's how I got in the game of hunting. And to this day, I do all types of hunts, but predator hunting is still my game. Um, you know,
I love that. I love that. So, at what point in your journey did the concept of chasing cougars like really take hold from you? Was it because for me, my hunting journey actually starts with chasing coyotes. It was a year-round pursuit, something that was never out of season. Um, a lot of the times, landowners will allow you to come on to hunt predators, but it's a great door opener. Where was
yeah.
it that the cougar game really picked up for you?
Uh, Down not far from the border around Sanderson, Texas. And there was a ranch that I started doing the Trans-Pecos Desert Mule Deer hunts on, and really a big population of mountain lions in that area. And so, um, like I said before then, I did a lot of trapping for ranchers, mainly for their sheep, so they can have a good lamb crop. Mainly red fox, coyotes, and bob. And then as I was down in that part for was and still am 17, 18 years. Um, the first 3 or 4 years, I started noticing signs of mountain lions, and so I knew my number three traps weren't going to catch lions. So I invested in a couple dozen 750s, and started. We have a lot of caves down there, and learning from some of the old timers down there um, how to spot where they're traveling. And it really, after a year or two, it just became really easy, to the point to where I knew that when I went to check my traps, that the chances of me having a line uh, was pretty good. And when I started catching them, it was, man, it was one of the most exciting uh, things that I'd ever done, and I got ate up with it. And and then uh, we started calling lions at night, and the first time calling three lions, it was like, wow, and uh, then you call in two lions in one night, and it's um, it's a patient game, but uh, and you might go out 6 or 7 times and not have any luck, but it's well worth that eighth time you go out and line comes in. It was worth the time that you spent to call it in.
Yeah.
There's nothing like,
Well, let me
you
ask
know.
you. Let me ask you a question here, real quick, because people go an entire lifetime without ever seeing a cougar in the wild, and here you are. You're
Mm.
already talking about seeing two or three in a night. So, like, is it is it more like just because there's so many cougars in these areas that you've been in, or have you been able to identify excuse me, have you been able to identify uh, what type of terrain, topography, um, uh, environment specifically holds cougars, and then to pinpoint, like, do you think you could take your cougar knowledge from Texas and apply it to, Wyoming, for example?
Yeah, if they have a decent population of lions, um, uh, I would go and explore that area. Um, and if they do have a decent population, I will find where they're traveling. I'll see their signs. So the thing about mountain lions, uh, so when there's a decent population, especially certain times of the year, but you start using lion vocals, especially female vocals and stuff like that. If there is a lion within hearing range, that lion is going to come investigate that female. Uh, so, um, and even in our area here in the Abilene area, our lion population is growing. Um, so down where I do most of my lion hunts, down in the canyons of Southwest Texas, I don't know how many people are familiar with that part of the country, but there's thousands of caves, and I call it the nursery.
What's up, Soul Seekers Nation? Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. As a reward, I have some discount codes for you to use if you are in the market for a brand new hunting pack. Go check out initialascent.com and Initial Ascent packs. They are made in America. Their one piece carbon frame is an absolute game changer. We run their packs, we love them, and you can save 5% at checkout by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. Also, for those of you who are archery hunters and you are tired of shooting at dots on a target, check out deadnutsoutdoors.com for their lifelike 2D archery targets. You can save 20% on all of their products by using the code SOULSEEKERS at checkout. Once again, the code is SOULSEEKERS, all one word. Go check out initialascent.com and Dead Nuts Outdoors. Enjoy the podcast.
It's so populated with mountain lions in that area. And I feel the reason it's so populated right now is because more and more ranchers are getting out of the sheep business and there's less trappers. Back in the day, there was a couple trappers on every ranch. Now there's ranchers with no trappers.
Mhm.
And so the lion population just grows and there gets to be so many that they're moving further north, like in our hill country area. But um, yeah, we've got a good, healthy population, and don't get me wrong, I think mountain lions are one of the most majestic animals on our planet. They're beautiful. I don't want to see them becoming extinct or anything, but whenever there's a time to manage any animal. And, when we have the population that we have, you have to manage them.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
Well, let's take it down to the basic 101 level of cougar country. When you are stepping foot onto a piece of property, and what's your protocol? Are you looking for sign first? Are you looking for travel corridors? Is it food, water, shelter? What is your process to start finding cats?
Um, well, the topography. Uh, if you're on in country where uh, there's a good number of caves and they have a good water supply, especially in parts of the country where the Pecos River goes through. Wow, you are in mountain lion country. So it's all about uh, you know, of course, down there the canyons, and then after the canyons, you go further to Big Bend, the mountains and things. But it is this part of the country. Some of the canyons and the areas you're in are about 4,000 feet. It is um, an ideal place for mountain lions to live. Uh, it's so secluded down there. When you get down into the bottom of the canyons, you could hide school buses down there. And until you get down into the canyons, you walk it, and you're down in the dry creek, you have no idea how tall the trees are, how thick it is down there, and what a highway it is for animals. Um, have an area where you have a good, healthy water supply, then you're going to have your aoudad, your javelina, your mule deer. Um, you're going to have um, food supply for the mountain lion.
Hmm.
Um, so that's one of the main areas that I look for. If the terrain is rugged, deep, and there's caves and there's a water supply, no doubt in my mind, you are going to see lion signs. When you get down into the canyons and you get down to where the caves are, if you know what you're looking for, you'll find tracks. You'll find scratches. Uh, you'll find their pathways. It's once you've done it for a little while, it's very evident to know that you are smack in the middle of lion country.
Okay. So when you're saying when you know what to look for. So what are the signs? Talk to me like I am that brand new hunter that wants to go cougar hunting. What are these signs that you're looking for? Is it just the animal, the cougar paw prints? Is it caves? Is it drag marks? Give us as much information, detail, if you wouldn't mind, to help paint a picture for somebody who's listening to this show and taking notes, being like, all right, I want to kill a cougar this year. I'm gonna take this note by note.
All right. So one of the main things, once you've done this for a while, are you familiar with header dams?
I am not.
Uh, head, okay. Header dams are areas where back in the day, in the early 1900s, the ranchers would build a dam down the crevice of the canyons where the water would just pour down. And then they would build a dam, and it could be 3 feet wide and 20 feet tall. And now it is um, a big pond for wildlife, for sheep, for goats. Every header dam you go to is an area where a lion, generation after generation, will travel and go to. If you find a header dam, you continue to look past that header dam as it's going further down into the canyon, you'll find paths. And the paths that you find, that's where you're going to start seeing lion signs. You're going to start seeing piles of bones. Uh, you're, um, I mean, worn down paths, paths that you see that you know that it's not deer. Because they're going underneath logs that are 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and that's their pathway. And um, and I just set traps on pathways, and uh, and then I circle my traps with rocks because a lion, if it, they would rather step into a smooth spot than on a rock.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. As a thank you, I got more discount codes for all of you. If you are in the market for anything in regards to calls, whether it's elk calls, turkey calls, deer, or predator calls, you can save 15% on all Rocky Mountain hunting calls by using the code Soul Seekers. That's all one word. And if you're in the market for hard side hydration, a better way to hydrate, go check out hardsidehydration.com. Use the code SoulSeekers10 to save 10%. And we also have a discount at Graxaw.com. That is, Graxaw is the leader in ultralight game bags and other backcountry gear. Light, fast, and efficient is their motto. Use the code SoulSeekers, all one word, to save 10% at checkout.
So you make your little circle, they're going to step inside that circle rather than on top of the rock that you circle around. Um, but it's like I said, it's the bones, the tracks, the areas that you know that lions travel all the time. It's just you learn um, the bluffs of canyons. Lions always hug the bluffs, um, and down in the canyons where the bluffs are. That's where you're going to find caves. Also, you'll always see the caves up higher because there's nothing hiding them, but down lower in the canyons where all the trees and the bushes are, uh, I bet you there's ranchers that don't really travel or walk their ranches, have no idea how many caves they have on their property, because until you get down into the lowest part of the canyons and walk them bluffs, there's I have found caves that there were doors made from manure from native Indians, that they would plug that door up to where they could sleep in the cave. And I've found this door laying inside the cave. And all it is 3-4 inches thick of mud, grass, manure, whatever they made their doors out of. Those kind of caves, um, lions will have their cubs in. So when you find a cave like that, set a few traps in. I don't care how long you've been trapping, you will catch a lion in those areas. So it's just to me, it's just simple. Um, uh, Now I can just go down to an area, uh, a brand new ranch, and find a dozen places where I can set traps for a lion. Because those are some simple rules. Go down deep into the canyons, all of the bluff faces, and find the header dams. There's header dams on every ranch down there in the canyons. Um, some have been there so long that you almost have to be on top of them to find them. But once you find them, I get excited because I know lions travel there every year, up and down it. So um, it's not if a lion's going to come through there; it's when is the lion going to come through there.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Gotcha. So are these seasonal cats, or is it like elk where they're on like a weekly rotation of their range that they're circling around? What have you
so
found with that?
Well, I found as when I was younger, I heard all types of things that experts that, that maybe so in some areas, maybe I don't know. 500-mile radius sounds really funny to me because the ranches that I'm on, the lions live on this ranch. Um, so their range. Um, There's areas down there. I have buddies, and you know, when we're all trapping a radius, we'll we'll get 30 lions a year,
Hmm.
and that's not just that year; it's the next year and the next. It just, uh, yeah, lions have an area toms that protect the area, but it might just be a 10, 15, 20 mile area, and lions 20 miles is nothing for a lion, you know. And if there's a good uh, population of game and food, they're not going they're not going far. I pulled up to a ranch gate, a buddy of mine the other day, and as we pulled up to the gate, two mountain lions jumped the fence in front of us, right by his house. Um, uh, 3 or 4 days later, we were driving down the road. And we were less than a half mile, and there was a lion running on the left side in the bar ditch, trying to hide from it. I had a client a couple months ago. We aoudad hunt. He wounded an aoudad. We got out of our Can-Am, and we were out of the Can-Am for maybe 10 minutes and walked back to our Can-Am, and there was already lion tracks on our Can-Am tracks.
Wow.
He was helping us try to find the aoudad, I guess. Um, so, so the thing is that when you're in that area, um, I mean, sometimes I think I feel it, but um, I don't know how many times that I've been walking, tracking something down in the canyons where a lion was watching me. Um, it's you know, uh, I really think there's more lions than there are bobcats down there.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, it's I've been in Texas all my life, and it wasn't up to about 15. I'm 60. 15 years ago that I thought California or Utah or one of these other states um, had all the lions, and we had a few. Well, I don't believe that anymore. We have our fair share of mountain lions in Southwest Texas.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
When it comes to calling cougar, so you identify this location. You're looking for bluffs. You're looking for caves. You're looking for bones, and and then uh, and then you're like, okay, there's a cougar in an area. Whether you want to trap it, that's one of your go tos. Obviously, you're expecting a cougar to travel it. But if you want to call in a cougar and for predator calling purposes, what techniques are you using in regards to that? Are you scouting the areas first, or is it more you just kind of go in blind?
No, I'm calling areas that I know that there's lions um, traveling in those areas. So we'll go out at nighttime, and I've got a high rack, and we'll get up on top of the rack, and at first I'll start out with maybe some uh, fawn um, bleats calls, uh, um, or maybe even the jackrabbit.
Hmm.
And after you know, a fawn in distress, basically. After I do that, there's several lion vocals. You've got things they call it the whistle, and lions will do a whistle, and it's a location, and they're doing it to locate other lions.
Uh huh.
Um, there's all types. There's the catarrhal. There's the female in heat. There's several females in heat. Um, so once after I do a distress call, I'll maybe do the whistle um, for a little bit. Um, but typically, 90% of the times, whenever one comes in, um, it'll come in within 30 minutes of a Linus in heat, and they come in like a freight train.
When is
And
mating
then they
season?
make well, typically, February, March, um, the end of January, but they can mate any time of the year. Um, but your most active months seem to be January, February, March. Those seem to be really, but there's not a month that you can't call in a line. Um, but to raise your odds, I would give it those 3 months. And if I was going to say 2 months, I'd say February, March.
Gotcha. Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That's really great to know. So February and March, you're using the cat vocals for coming into heat. Are you a Fox Pro guy, or is it? I mean, or is there anything? Is it a hand
So
call or diaphragm, or are you all electronic?
I've called in. I've called lines in with mouth calls. I've got one that I use more than I use any other call. I've been using it for years, but Fox Pro's been good. They've uh, um, they've supplied me with uh, a lot of electronic gear, so they've been super with me. Um, but and it's not always. I said a deer. The first line I ever called in uh, was a distressed gray fox,
Hmm.
and I called in a few lines with distressed fox. Uh, so and like I said, jackrabbit gets their attention, but uh, deer, uh, fawns, uh, I there was a time there was a deer that tried to jump the barbed wire fence, and you know how deer will get hung up on their hind legs on a barbed wire fence,
Yep.
and the deer was there grunting and in distress, and um, a lion came in for the kill.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's
Wild. So okay, when so the cat whistle, what is that? Wah, wah. Is that what?
yeah,
That's kind of what it
mm,
sounds like, right?
yeah, 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 and some of them are a little higher pitched, but yeah, it's just a kind of sharp, whistle. And the thing about it is, the dark of the moon in West Texas, when the Milky Way looks like low clouds, there's nothing more beautiful. But when it's really, really just quiet, um, and you start playing your vocals, um, it's to me, it's a beautiful sound, but man, it can be eerie. It's like wow. You know, when you hear something calling back, you think, "Oh boy."
Okay, so this is one of my questions I had for you. Is I in my early hunting days, my buddy and hunting partner Tony, him and I, we got done sighting in some rifles for deer season, and I was like, "Hey, let's go over to some little pocket of land that I know that is heavy brush." So it's like maybe these trails that are about a 2 track wide, right? And you're walking through tall timber, blackberry briars. This is up in the state of Washington, so to kind of give you an idea, we've got rolling hills or the foothills of the Cascade Mountains, and we go in there. We're doing some evening time calling, but the sun starts to drop, and so then it was like, okay, we'll turn on some spotlights for some coyotes and see what we can do. And I'm pretty sure I heard a cat whistle. call back to us from our call. Is that common? Is that something that you experienced? Because the hair stood up on the back of my neck instantly, and I couldn't identify which direction it was coming from. And so we stood back to back and was like, "Uh-oh, okay, where is this thing?"
No, you can absolutely hear a whistle come back at you. Um, so I've experienced that. I've experienced canoeing down the Pecos River, and me and my buddy fishing, and a lion vocalizing in heat, and it's just a rawr, rawr, and we sat there and would listen to it for 10 to 15 minutes. She's calling in a tom, and um, so that's another thing that I've had um, the opportunity, um, not just once or twice, but several times, actual lion vocals in the wild. And when you're out there long enough, um, there's many times, many days, nights I've spent, and you're really quiet. It always comes when you least expect it, but yeah, I've heard some beautiful sounds coming from the mouths of lions.
Wow. Okay, so is what does that mean? Like, are they that close? How far away are they when when you are hearing them back, especially on a whistle, rather than the rah sound and the wah, the s- I can't even make the
Well,
sound.
the whistle, yeah, no, the whistle, they're a lot closer to you than they are when they're doing their vocalization in heat.
Uh huh.
But the vocalization heat, I mean, they're within 200 to 300 yards, so they're not far. The whistle, they're within 100 yards of you, when you hear the whistle, and unless you're, that the sound you're in an area where the sound's really traveling. Um, the whistle's not near as loud as their vocalization when they're in heat. Um, so yeah, they're not far at all. But the terrain that we're in, um, with the rocks and the boulders, and um, you know, there's just even though you know what area that sound is coming from, you can glass and glass and not see them.
Yeah.
The perfect opportunity to have your electronic call out, because it's almost a guarantee that you can call it in if you hear a vocalization. Um, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to call it in.
Really?
Cats, curiosity got the cat, you know, and it's a true statement. Yeah, uh, they'll come running in, and they stop 100, 150, 200 yards, but you can see them, and then they'll come in slow. Um, but yeah, they're coming. They're going to come.
Man, fascinating. Uh, how long are you calling for when you're calling cats?
Uh, I've called as long as an hour, but typically, um, you know, 30, 45 minutes. Um, so if there's one within hearing distance, um, you'll call one in within 30 minutes. If there's if there's one in the area where they can hear it, you'll call one in within 30. But um, an hour is definitely not too long, to to use some vocals.
Are you keeping
You
wind in
know,
your face the entire time, or do you not really care about the wind as much because cats are more visual?
yeah, cats are more visual. They're nothing like a coyote, or even a red fox for that matter. But cats, I've had cats come into me, and the wind is blowing right up their nose. Um, It's not really so much the scent. Um, I'm not saying that there's not times that maybe they'll get a little hesitant. Um, but for example, a coyote, they're gone. They're not gonna, and that's not true with cats in the cat family.
Yeah.
Um, you know, they they really, I mean, they're the king of the land. They don't messing with them.
Hmm.
You know, um, so uh, they don't have uh, that fear of man like or respect that is like a coyote does. Um, it's totally different game. Uh, noise and sight are the two big things for cats.
Noise and sight. Okay, so are they
Uh-huh.
are they going? Do you find cats hanging up in the brush? Is it hard to spot them when you're calling them, or are they coming in and showing themselves?
No, typical. Um, my experience at nighttime, they're gonna if they're there, they're coming in. They're coming in. You'll always see them at night. Um, during the daytime, you have to be a little more cautious because you can't move around. You know, you have the night gives you an advantage, um, and so daytime they will come in and they'll continue to come in. Um, but if you're out in the open and you're not cautious on how your movement is,
Hmm.
if they see you, they will leave.
Gotcha. Okay,
Uh,
so you're still holding very steady, making sure that.
yeah.
Okay, that's really good to know. So, uh, when you are identifying your location to call for cats, you've scouted an area, you know that it's a travel corridor, they're in the region at some time. I always heard that if you're not on tracks that are very fresh, your chances of actually calling the cat in is like very minimal. Is that something that you follow as well, or you believe, or what's your thought on that?
It all depends on what part of the country you're calling in. I know my part of the country real well, and so I know that if I see lion signs, that doesn't mean that's the only lion that's in that area.
Mm,
Um, so uh, eh, definitely seeing fresh tracks um, is a positive thing. Um, but any signs that you see, any lion signs that you see, whether they're a day old or a week or 2 weeks old, uh, I would still call that area. I would definitely trap the area, but I would call the area because it doesn't mean it's going to be another month before they come back to that area. Um, just because of the that we have. Um, so, uh, especially when you're talking about those 3 months that I was talking about, or the 2 months, now they're in that area mating, and so they're not leaving the area.
okay.
Um, so you're going to. So what? It was just this past. I don't. I think it was in January. Um, Well, it was just right after I was telling you about we were on the Pecos fishing, and then we heard uh, the lion vocal in heat.
Hmm.
Uh, the next day, when a uh, foot trap, um, within, I don't know, 500, 700 yards of where we heard it. Um, and then as soon as the trap was set, we pushed the button on the camera and then walked away. And then it was 36 hours later, Joe went back and the trap was gone. He followed the drag, and the lion had died because once he looked at the camera, he saw that that lion got in the trap 8 minutes after it was set.
Hmm. 8
And so
minutes.
it was hot. 8 minutes. Yeah. Uh, that was correct. Um, so the lion was just right there when the trap was getting set. Um, and because of the fact that that lion had got trapped and hung up by the drag, um, and the next 2 or 3 days was abnormally hot for January, uh, she just didn't get the water she needed, and or she would have been alive. But yeah, 8 minutes. 8 minutes after the trap was set, she got in that trap. I mean, you kind of visualize uh, her sitting there watching the trap being set and then leaving, and then she go over and investigate what was going on. It's like 8 minutes.
That is the eeriest thing about cougars, right? Is that they're probably watching you a lot more than you even realize.
Oh yeah, because I mean, honestly, we are setting traps where we know that a line has uh, come through there within 12 hours of us setting, or is still in that area, and there may be and that's another thing that we come across when you see a carcass covered up with leaves and limbs. That line's coming back, and so how many times we've set a trap and they won't eat rotten meat, so you're not going to smell it. Uh, but how many times that we've set a trap and there was a carcass covered up within 30 or 40, 50 yards of us, um, and the lion's not far from its carcass. Yeah, and that's another thing. But I assure you, we're never down in the canyons without holstering. Um, to go down in the canyons without carrying would be foolish. Um, yeah.
So you always carry a sidearm with you when you're cougar
Oh,
hunting.
yeah. It's always, yeah. Before you get out, you check your gun. You make sure you're chambered. You make sure you got a full mag. That's just one thing you make sure you don't have one bullet. Um, yeah. There's always saying if you only have one bullet, you might want to use it on yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
So,
if so those of you said if you ever come across a carcass that's covered up, the cat's not far from it. Is that
oh no.
typically its cave is not far from it? Its bedding location? What have you experienced?
Yeah, like I said, there's lots of caves, but he doesn't necessarily have to have a cave that he's using, but it's just an area that has killed.
Hmm.
That was his last, and so especially in the winter months, whenever it's really cool and you have cool days, he come back 2 or 3 days, uh, and he's going to be within hearing distance of that carcass.
Hmm.
So he's there. Um, but I've learned a lot about lions. I've learned how they're really cool down, and I'm looking out of the car, looking over into the bar ditch, and the thing is only 20 yards away, and no, I didn't see that he just ran there. Never would I've ever seen him.
Hmm.
They uh, they blend in to the terrain so well. Um, you can literally, and it has happened to me. I tie my traps down. I don't let them. They have drags on them, but I don't let them drag anymore. I had an experience where I walked up on a line within 10 feet, didn't know he was there until I heard a little noise. And if he wanted to pounce, he could have pounced on me, but he was just being quiet. And I just backed up real quick. Well, not really quick. I was real slow.
Uh-huh.
But uh, and that was the day I decided that from now on, all my traps will be wired securely to a trunk, a rock, or something to where they can only go as far as the chain, 10, 15 feet. Uh, I've looked for lions that have been caught in a trap and following the drag, and you lose because sometimes when they start running, the drag will bounce up high. And so you have to keep looking to where that drag hit and keep following it. Uh, I know there was an instance that I walked around this area. Um, I couldn't find the lion. And the next day we went back and there was a bush. And I couldn't tell you how many times I walked around that bush. And when I went back the next day, the bush was totally demolished, ate up, torn up. And he had some uh, pads that he left in the trap. He got out of the trap. Um, there's an old saying: if you catch a cat with just one pad, they will yank out of it. If you catch a cat with two pads, they will not get out.
Huh.
Well, I don't believe the story no more because this trap had three pads in it. He literally pulled the tendons and the pads off his foot, three of them. Um, and I don't know how I didn't see that line.
Wow.
Um, about 2 months later, uh, 10, 12 miles away on the Steele Ranch, a cat was caught missing in another trap
Uh-huh.
that was missing three pads. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Do you find trapping cats to be more exciting or calling them in?
Um, probably calling them in um, because it's right now. It's right here. I mean, it's happening. They're loose. Um, they're not. They're not caught. They're you know they can do anything. Um, and then to get them in, to get a shot at, knowing that you called them in, um, makes it a little exciting.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
uh, the trapping part is, like I said before, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when, and it's a waiting game.
Mhm.
Uh, calling is a waiting game also, but experience in the moment is what makes it exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So you run an outfitter service and you take guys, you take anyone who wants to come cougar hunt, and because in Texas a cougar is not considered a game animal, right? Or no, it's a game animal.
Yeah.
There's no season to it. What is it again?
Yeah. There's no season on mountain lions. And a funny thing, the buddy I was telling you about, a friend of mine in San Angelo, they went down to Austin. Uh, they went down to Austin this past winter because of an article that by a biologist here in Texas who I feel like was being paid because he wrote his article that mountain lions stopped in Texas because they are uh, extinct. That the pop numbers are so low that we're we continue on this track when I would have line. That's the furthest from the truth.
Mm,
Um, so Jeremy and several other ranchers down. They had out during the meeting there in Austin to uh, kind of counter what was told and explain to them that um, that's so far from the truth. That the lion population is so healthy in Texas, and that is with being there is no season, there is no limit uh, on the numbers you can kill, and we still have a very healthy lion population. So
Why?
that's this this biologist had to be getting paid to by the animal activists, and like I told you before, I'm all about game management. If I see that there's a certain species that the population is going down, they need to not be hunted. They need to be managed. Uh, but on the flip side of it, if it's an animal where the population is too high, they need to be managed to a point to where they're not killing several other species and not their.
Right.
So there you go, Peter.
Right. Take it and shove it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's it.
I love it. How much does a cougar hunt? If someone wants to come experience getting on a cougar with you, is calling and trapping all within the same thing, or can someone just come and trap
Yeah.
cougars with you? How does it work? What's your pricing on that?
So basically, how we do it: mountain lion hunt for 5 days. Food, lodging is 5,500, and during that hunt, we'll teach them how to set a uh, a lion trap, and so then we'll once they learn how they feel comfortable about setting a mountain lion trap and hiding it, and um, but they'll know exactly what to do before we even take them out. Up at the lodge, we'll spend time, however long it takes, to where they feel comfortable. Then we'll go down to the river, get in the canoe, and paddle down, get out the area where we think would be a good area to set a lion trap. May set two, three, four, and then at nighttime we'll go out and we'll call. That way, it ups the odds
Hmm.
of. So that night we go out, we're not successful. And the next morning after we eat, we'll get in the canoe and go check the lion traps. And then the following night we go out and we'll call. Uh, um, I feel like if a person sets his own traps, um, there's nothing wrong with somebody killing a lion out of a trap because he did all the work. It's not like he was called and said, "Hey, I got a lion in the trap. You want to come shoot it?"
Hmm.
He's the one that actually caught the lion. Now, if a person doesn't want to do the trapping, then we just spend a little more time at the lodge during the day, and we focus on evening and night calling. Uh, but the opportunity is there for him um, to do both.
Mm, awesome. And that's year round, or is it
Yeah.
because you are an outfitter service and you're doing different things throughout the year that you might be booked, or how far out in advance do you like to have people schedule with you?
Well, I tell you, really, um, the months that we don't really do it um, are the really hot months in West Texas, and you're talking about June, July, August, and so we'll start. Uh, you know, even September is warm, but the October through May, we don't mind doing lion hunts. Um, of course, um, I've said what months are the best, but yeah, it's you can call in a lion in April, May. Um, so it's the only reason we don't do it during the hot months is it's uh, once you catch a say if one was caught in the trap, you got to get to it really, really quick. Because most people want to save the hide to make a rug out of it or to mount it
Right.
or that, and then you're just increasing the odds of the pelt not being good because of the heat.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, when someone pays you and says, "Hey, take me cougar hunting. I can't wait," and you're nighttime calling. When you're a predator calling, you're not guaranteed to just call in cougars. The chances of calling in anything that's a predator is high. Is that correct?
Yeah, especially when you start out using some of your vocals that you can use that could call in anything, whether it be rabbit or distress box or something. I mean, you could so easily call in bobcat or coyote or something else. It's um, so. Here's the thing: we've done this. It's happened several times whenever we are just taking predator callers out, but we have a bounty. Um, so they're not expecting to kill a lion. They're expecting to kill fox, bobcat, but they'll charge a bounty, and we tell them, look, we know you're not here lion hunting, but if a lion comes in during your predator hunt, um, it's $1,500 to shoot the lion because they've already paid for their night hunting. Um, so I don't feel like jacking it up and saying, oh, 5,500 for the lion. So typically on a 3-night predator hunt, they're paying 2,250.
Hmm.
You know, so during that 3-night hunt, they kill a lion. So now they're at around 4 grand. So it's a win-win. They predator hunted, they killed a lion. It was cheaper than 5,500, but it was a 3 day instead of 5.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right. That makes total sense. Don, was there anything that I did not ask that you feel like is some information that you want to make sure is told?
no, I just can't wait if it ever happens in my lifetime. It probably won't, but we have a very large bear population down there too. But that is one thing that is protected in Texas.
There is a bunch of
We
bears down there.
we have a good bear population. I see bear all the time. The bear really, you really start seeing them at the beginning of September because our canyons are loaded with persimmon
Mhm.
trees. The 1st of September, the persimmons are ripe. They're full of fat and protein, and the bears gorge themselves and put on a lot of weight. And I'm not talking, my first bear I ever killed was in Canada. Went to Canada thinking that Canada to kill a bear. Two couldn't tell you how many I've seen in Southwest Texas, bigger than the ones that I saw in Canada. Uh, um, now I know they have some big bear, but uh, it's don't be mistaken in thinking that the bear, small little desert bears, because I've seen my share of 400-pound bear. Uh,
Wow.
uh, red, blonde, and black. Um, and some of them have hair that you could uh, do little ponytails all over them. It's just really strange.
Fascinating. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to come down with you just to like see some bears, just to actually lay some eyes on and see how they're acting down there.
yeah. So we had a big problem this year with our feeders. I was so pissed at the bears this year. They tore up so many feeders. We got them on camera. Do everything in the world to get them to leave our uh, feeders alone. But man, they'll knock down the feeders and lay down on a pile of corn and sit there all night and eat it. You know,
Fascinating. Truly fascinating. Um, Real quick, have you ever eaten cougar?
I have. My wife fixes it up very well. The backstrap is delicious, and so she cooks it chicken fry. Uh, she pounds the meat, the backstrap. You think you're eating very delicious. Uh, yeah, there's actually the funny story is the very first cat I ever killed. A guy offered to skin it for me full body, so I didn't have to stay up all night doing it if I gave him the backstrap. So I gave him the backstrap, so I didn't have to stay up all night skinning it out. Um, yeah, a lot of people like. I promise you, you would like it.
I can only imagine that they always say mountain lion is like pork, right? So pork schnitzel is phenomenal. So you're talking about
Yeah,
pounding it
no,
out and chicken frying it. It's kind of the same concept, right?
yeah, yeah. It is a very good, clean. Mountain lions don't eat anything rotten. They don't eat anything nasty. Everything is fresh kill, and you get on a big tom, you get some really good backstraps, and um, I couldn't go on enough about how the meat, nothing gamey. It just tastes like good meat.
Wow, that is
I'd rather eat that than deer. Tastes gamey to me. There's nothing gamey about mountain lion.
fascinating. Fascinating. Love it. Well, Don, thank you so much for your time, brother. I really appreciate it. Listeners, if you want to know more about cougar hunting and trapping cougars, reach out to Don. You can go to his website at steeleoutfitters.com, and that's STEELE outfitters.com. And you can get a hold of Don himself, and I'm sure us hunters, we love to tell stories and talk and
Yeah.
shoot the breeze. So, Don, any directions you want to tell people or leave anyone with any information or how to get a hold of you or anything like that?
Yeah, no, on the websites is a cell phone, and that's the absolute only way you can get a hold of me. That's the only way my wife can get a hold of me. So it's a good number. It's with me all the time. If you're interested, just call that number and get with. We'll see what we can hook up.
Perfect. Perfect. Well,
And
everybody,
hook
thank you
up
so
with you.
much. Oh, sorry, Don. I apologize.
No, no, I just said I look forward to hooking up with you.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Same, same. Well, listeners, hope you enjoy this episode. If you have more questions, let us know. I'd love to hear from you. Have you tell us what you thought. Remember that mentorship is conservation. Hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure. Man, as I got a cough fit, I apologize. Be blessed, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in this episode. I'm Johnny Mack, Don Steele with Steele Outfitters. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.